All right, so the next one here, Jared Kushner says that Gaza waterfront property could be very valuable. So this article's from The Guardian, and this is something here. So Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, has praised the very valuable potential of Gaza's waterfront property and suggested that Israel should remove civilians while it cleans up the strip. The former property dealer, married to Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka, made the comments in an interview at Harvard University on March 8th. Kushner was a senior foreign policy advisor under Trump's presidency and was tasked with preparing a peace plan for the Middle East. Critics of the plan, which involved Israel striking normalization deals with Gulf states, said that it bypassed questions about the future for Palestinians. And Kushner was actually in charge of this so-called peace deal that the Trump administration released, I think, in 2020, in January 2020. Trump called it the deal of the century, and it would have essentially the deal was that Israel would annex all the settlements in the West Bank. They would annex the Jordan Valley in the West Bank, a big chunk of territory, like right on the actual bank of the Jordan River, and they would create all these Israel-only access roads, which are already there. It would basically formalize the apartheid conditions for the Palestinians. They would have their little, it looked like Swiss cheese, the map, and there would be a tunnel going from the West Bank to Gaza. Of course, it was a complete non-starter for the Palestinians, so it never went anywhere. So it's not a surprise that he says things like this. So Kushner said in this interview, quote, Gaza's waterfront property could be very valuable if people would focus on building up livelihoods, end quote. He continued and said, quote, it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated they don't want the people to move back there afterwards, end quote. And I saw in the video he was asked, because he's talking about moving people out, moving the civilians out of Gaza, and he was asked, well, people are worried that Israel's not going to let them back in, and so that's why he's saying, I haven't seen them say that they don't want them back in. But Kushner also said he thinks Israel should move the Palestinians in Gaza to the Negev desert in southern Israel. He said that if he were in charge of Israel, his number one priority would be getting civilians out of Rafah, and he said that with diplomacy, it could be possible to get them into Egypt. He said, quote, but in addition to that, I would just bulldoze something in the Negev. I would try to move people in there. I think that's a better option so you can go in and finish the job, end quote. So this is Kushner pontificating on what he would do, and his interviewer seemed pretty surprised by his response, because what he's saying is talking about people moving the Palestinians to the desert. He was asked if that's something that they're talking about in Israel, and Kushner denied, said, I don't know. I'm just looking at the situation and trying to figure it out. So he's not saying that, claiming any insider knowledge, but I am sure that he's talking to people in Israel about this. And, who knows what his position would be if Trump came back in. Would he be put right back in charge of this Israel, Palestine, Middle East stuff? So, just to be talking about this stuff and say, hey, that waterfront property in Gaza is going to be worth a lot someday, I bet. And I know that the Israeli settlers who want to reestablish Jewish settlements in Gaza, that's something that they've been talking about at these events and conferences that they have. I've seen like models and drawings of what beachfront property in Gaza could look like in the future.
The dilemma that Israeli leadership has right now is, do you do a short-term deal that leaves you more vulnerable in the future, or do you take this current situation and try to figure out a way where you can create a paradigm where your citizens will be safe and this will not happen again? What I would do right now if I was Israel is I would try to say, number one, you want to get as many civilians out of Rafah as possible. I think that you want to try to clear that out. I know that with diplomacy, maybe you get them into Egypt. I know that that's been refused, but with the right diplomacy, I think it would be possible. But in addition to that, the thing that that I would try to do if I was Israel right now is I would just bulldoze something in the Negev. I would try to move people in there. I know that won't be the popular thing to do, but I think that that's a better option to do so that you can go in and finish the job. But you have to, again, I think Israel's gone way more out of their way than a lot of other countries would to try to protect civilians from casualties. But I do think right now opening up the Negev, creating a secure area there, moving the civilians out, and then going in and finishing the job would be the right move.
Is that something that they're talking about in Israel? I mean, that's the first I've really heard of somebody, aside from President Sisi, suggesting that that the Gazans who are trying to flee the fighting could take refuge in the Negev. Are people in Israel seriously talking about that possibility, about hosting Gazan refugees in what is considered, quote unquote, Israel proper?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
but that would be something you would try to work on.
I'm sitting in Miami Beach right now, and I'm looking at this situation, and I'm just thinking, what would I do if I was there?